Good morning, Michael.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Coalition of Concerned Republicans, welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. My name is Mike Levine. I'm here with Chuck Benoit. And I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that last week was obviously we're coming up 1 week from today is election day. Your sample ballots should be on your desk. They certainly have been delivered to you by the supervisor of elections, and you have some decisions to make. Last week was a very interesting week. The Lake County Republican Executive Committee Public Policy Subcommittee actually finalized a list of legislative priorities for 2027 that will go in front of the executive board and then to the executive committee body, hopefully at our next meeting, unless the executive board obstructs, which is possible. Okay. But that work is done. And I was on the committee, and I feel pretty good about the legislative priorities for 2027 coming out of the Lake County Republican Executive Committee. So that's a big deal going into committee weeks starting in mid-November. That's a big deal. Again, we're up against Election Day 1 week from today. Chuck and I are going to go through the ballot. And then I've had some really interesting conversations with high-profile local politicians, and I'm kind of at a quandary as to whether we should just name them or just talk generally about the conversation that we've had. And Chuck will have a lot to do with that. But we're going to go through the ballot today. We're going to walk through the ballot today, and we're going to talk about, here's the big question. Do elected officials have the obligation to do what is morally right under natural law, or do elected officials hold themselves only to the letter of the law, and everything that is not illegal is in play? And I would suggest that that's where we are today. Elected officials do not hold themselves to natural law. They hold themselves only to the letter of the law and leverage every mechanism at their disposal to achieve their own personal goals. That is my assertion, and Chuck and I are going to go through that today. So, Chuck, you want to come on and join us?
Good morning, Michael.
What say you, Chuck?
We're trying to talk about morals in a way that actually affect, the politician and where they're coming from. Our nation, our laws have to abide by natural law for them to be constitutional. Now, that's a reality that, it's how the Constitution and our Declaration were framed, but it's not really how we're living, nor is our Supreme Court actually legislating from that perspective, even though that is the perspective that our Constitution and Declaration of Independence was framed. Any law that violates natural law cannot be law. So that's kind of
But
where
what
we're
we're talking about
starting.
today, Chuck, is the absence of a law.
And
It's actually the absence of a law. So let me give you an example, okay? Since I've been involved in politics in Lake County, Florida, I'm just going to go through our constitutional officers real quick. Bob McKee was a tax collector when I got involved in Lake County politics. Bob McKee resigned from his position 6 months early so that David Jordan could be appointed tax collector by the governor and run for re-election as an incumbent. Neil Kelly was our clerk of the court. He resigned from his position 6 months early so that Gary Cooney, our current clerk of the court, could get appointed by the governor and run as an incumbent. Gary Borders was our sheriff before Peyton Grinnell. Gary Borders endorsed Peyton Grinnell, both Borders and Grinnell in uniform, standing in front of a squad car on television to give Peyton Grinnell an insurmountable advantage in against anyone who would challenge him for the Lake County Sheriff's job. Kerry Baker served 10 years in the Florida legislature, in the House and the Senate, and was supported with substantial campaign contributions from the Florida House Political Committee and the Florida Senate Political Committee, giving him the campaign funds to overturn Ed Havel, who was our property appraiser for 36 years. And you just couldn't compete with the money that Baker had from the Florida House and the Florida Senate. So that would be an unfair advantage in my point of view. Yet that's business as usual in Florida politics. And Alan Hayes did the same thing. Alan Hayes served in the Florida House and Florida Senate. And in order to jack up his pension, same with Baker, in order to jack up his pension, he took significant money from the Florida House and the Florida Senate political committees so that he was insurmountable in the general election. And still, he only lost. I mean, he won by like 4 votes. And there's all kinds of rumors and innuendo that go along around that. So I'm calling all of that I just covered, I'm calling that election interference. That's what I call it. And at every level, that is election interference. And you can extend that conversation over to the rules associated with political committees, our campaign finance laws in Florida. Our campaign finance laws in Florida facilitate election interference by big money donors and others, including the political parties who are trampling all over the grassroots, all right? I mean, I don't care which political party you're in, but I'm a Republican. We're Republicans here, and we know that the Republican Party of Florida is telling us out loud in the press that they will choose our nominees. That is election interference, because the Constitution of the state of Florida in Article 1, Section 1 says political power resides with the people. But that is not what's happening in the state of Florida. Grassroots candidates do not have a level playing field. They do not get the same platform to make their case for why they are the best candidate for the time period that we're in. So I call all of that we hate, that everybody acknowledges. They say, hey, that's just the way it is. If you want to take on an incumbent, you're going to have 10 times more money than them. But of course, the incumbent is already bankrolled. So you're basically saying it's near impossible. Now, we do have a couple of cases where the grassroots people have won because they've worked really, really. It's just, but for me personally, I find it to be not a level playing field. And I call all of the things that I just laid out for you election interference. Yet our election officials say, Chuck, and this is what I'm talking about, as we're raising our children, we tell them that when they go to school, they push the envelope on everything unless it's absolutely against the rules? Or do we tell our kids that they must be good people and do what's right, regardless of what the rules are? And that's the whole concept that our founding fathers in this country laid out for us when they started talking about natural law in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution of the United States. Yet today, our elected officials have told me personally, and I have it in writing from them, that leveraging the advantages that they have by virtue of their public office, while it is slimy, it's not corrupt, Chuck. That's the message that I got from elected officials over the weekend. They told me that there's a lot of stuff that goes on in government that's really slimy, but it's not illegal. So you can't call it corrupt. What do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, definition of words. Definition of
No,
words.
it's morality, Chuck.
Yeah,
This is morality that we're talking about.
right.
So, for example, go ahead. I want to get you in here because I can pound on this all day.
Yeah, right. We can
Go
move
ahead.
on to the next thing shortly here. But yeah, the reality is that if it isn't illegal, there's no way you're going to legally stop it. And there's no the electorate themselves, they aren't really engaged enough to know the difference. So, most of this falls on the fact that our nation is so wealthy that the average American doesn't really pay much attention to how they're being governed. They are more concerned with the cost of gas and food than whether or not their politicians are shady. A little awkward in the end result of all that, but that's the reality. So yeah, we can point our finger at the candidates and at the politicians, but we have to be paying more attention ourselves as the electorate. The question is, how do we get those people aware of what's going on beyond, again, the cost of gas and groceries?
So the question is, who do you prefer to have the power and the leverage of political office? Someone who holds themselves to the moral obligations of natural law, or someone who will look you right in the eyes and tell you that if it's not illegal, it's in the playbook, right? And then you can get into all the negative campaigning that we're seeing, which is a result of the immorality of the standard operating procedures of political campaigns, not only in Florida, but around the country, but certainly alive and well in the great state of Florida, Chuck. So let's get into it. Let's run through the ballot real quick, and let's put some of these candidates up against the test. Will they govern themselves morally, or will they leverage every iota of power that they have at their disposal to get what they want out of their elected position? So let's start off with the Florida governor race, Chuck.
Okay, well, you want the governor race, or I was going to start at the top of the ballot?
Okay, yeah, let's start at the top of the ballot. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, the first on my ballot is the United States Senator, Chris Gleason, Ashley Moody, Neelam Tanaj Perry, and Ernie Rivera are our four Republican
let's
choices.
get rid of the two that we don't know, Chuck. Let's just put the audience on notice that we're not going to cover the two people that we really have heard nothing from.
Yeah,
right?
So we have Chris Gleason and Ashley Moody. And so what are your thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, Ashley Moody is a product. First of all, Ashley Moody was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis to the United States Senate.
You just went through an entire litany of this kind of a thing, right?
So long story short, everybody knows, I mean, anybody who doesn't believe that Ron DeSantis wants to be the president of the United States has got their head under a rock, right? And all the appointments that DeSantis has made, you have to make a commitment back to DeSantis that if he runs for president, you're going to support him, or you wouldn't get the appointment. Okay, that's just the way it is. That's just political life in America. Ron DeSantis leveraging his power as the governor with a very lucrative and desirable opportunity to appoint a United States senator, which is one of the most powerful positions in humanity. One of 100, governing over the most, the biggest budget in the world from a government standpoint. Of course, Apple has a bigger budget than the United States government does, but it's still a pretty good gig, right? So, and Ashley Moody's father was a judge. So she's been in the system for a long time. So she's for me, I like it. She's a nice lady. Okay. I don't have a personal thing against Ashley Moody. I think she's a sweet lady and everything, but I don't think that she has a lot of fortitude. I don't think that she's a fighter. I don't think that she's going to go stand up against leadership on things like election reform, Chuck, which is, there's a lot of stuff, ladies and gentlemen, coming out on election reform. Okay. The whole Italy Gate thing I'm going to refer to as a hot topic coming out of the White House and the Department of Justice and the CIA and the FBI. I don't see Ashley Moody being a leader on getting to the bottom of the stealing of the 2020 election, but Chris Gleason will. Chris Gleason is a data management expert who was interviewed on this show and is definitely That would be his A1 is election reform. And most people, most Republicans in Lake County believe that the 2020 election was stolen. And they also will tell you that if you don't have fair elections, you don't have a country. So if you're choosing between Chris Gleason and Ashley Moody and your litmus test is election reform, this is a no-brainer. Chris Gleason's going to fight for election reform and Ashley Moody is not. Period. She had plenty of time to do election reform when she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida, but she didn't do it. So I'm a Chris Gleason supporter in that particular race, Chuck.
There you go. Well, I will have to tell you, I feel the same way. I heard Ashley Moody not too long ago, just given the floor and having her say whatever she wanted to say. And at the end of that conversation, I was not impressed.
There you go.
I also feel like she is simply going to say and do what she's told to say and do with whomever she might happen to be beholding to. So moving on to the next on my list is the District 11. Now you have a District 6. You want to do your District 6 first?
No, I want to do 11.
Okay, well, let's look at District 11. We have Carrie Baker, whom I think a lot of people know. Yvette Palomo, I don't know her. And Nizam Razak,
We
I
won't
think
talk about Yvette.
I know enough about
No.
Nizam Razak to know that he's probably not my best choice. And, you know, my mailbox is utterly filled with my share of Joe Strada's $5 million. And then, of course, we have Tim Wilkins. So,
Start at the top, Chuck.
okay.
That's Baker first, right?
Carrie Baker. Go for it.
I like Carrie Baker. Super smart, super capable, super qualified to be a congressman. But Carrie Baker he was interviewed by the Florida Republican Assembly and asked, was the 2020 election stolen? And he said no. He said he has no evidence of any wrongdoing in the 2020 election. And of course, whenever these people know that the audience is hardcore election reform advocates, they want to throw the bone, a bone to the audience. So he says, well, there could have been some, bad things happen because of COVID-19 and everything. But as far as vote manipulation, abuse of mail-in ballot, things like that were illegal, no, I don't see that. So I'm just saying to you, I have a litmus test. If a candidate doesn't believe the 2020 election was stolen, I'm not voting for them to go to Congress. Period. Chuck.
There you go.
Next candidate.
Okay, so we're going to skip Yvette because there's not really much on there. Nizam Razak, the Muslim
You
who...
want to start that conversation?
Well, again, I just hold to the fact that you cannot be a good Muslim and swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. Can't be done, because if you are a good Muslim, then you're totally antithetical to the freedoms that we have in our Constitution. And of course, Islam does say that the good Muslim can lie, and if they are supporting Islam and they're supporting the Constitution, there's got to be a lie there somewhere, and the Muslim is allowed to lie to us. So I say that's where it is. So Nizam Razak cannot be a supporter of the U.S. Constitution, and therefore someone that we should send to Congress, unless, of course,
just to put the icing on the cake, Chuck. Nizam Razak is a lawyer and a doctor, a medical doctor, and he has time and money to give to pro-Islam organizations in Central Florida,
which he's doing.
And he's foreign born. So for me, I told the Florida Chamber of Commerce that it takes 3 generations to make an American. and he doesn't qualify. So that's my litmus test. I'm telling you, moving forward, even though I understand it's legal to elect people who are not naturally born citizens of the United States to Congress, but my personal standard is if you're not naturally born, I'm not voting for you for Congress. So
Oh,
I will not be voting for
and
Nissan
my
Razak.
position is if you can't swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States in the fullness of what it is, then you certainly can't be a member of any form of the government, and no Muslim can.
And I totally agree with your point that you're making right now. We could talk about this all day long too,
Sure.
but we have to move on.
Right. So Joe Strada, the millionaire who put $5 million into his own campaign, and walks around with the high-level RPOF people arm in arm. I assume that he's probably funneling more of his cash into the RPOF coffers as well. He's trying to buy the seat, and no one knows him. He doesn't live in our district, and
Nor does
so
Kerry Baker, by the way.
right there you go. So I'm not interested in what he's selling.
Look, I totally agree. Again, Brian Kennedy was kind enough to allow me to sit in on the interviews that the Florida Republican Assembly, Sumter County, did, and we interviewed Joe Strada. I told Joe Strada, our legislative delegation here in Lake County, Florida, despises their constituents. They literally hate us. They do everything they can to hurt us. They totally ignore our well-being, and they've all endorsed Joe Strada. So when I brought that to his attention when I was interviewing him, he brushed off the question. He said, of course I represent the people. And that was it. After I explained to him that the Lake County legislative delegation has told me to my face on many occasions that they have absolutely no concern over any of my political concerns. So that was that. And then the second piece of it is I asked him if the 2020 election was stolen. He gave me the same answer that Kerry Baker gave us. Well, there could have been some irregularities, this and that, but there's no direct evidence that the 2020 election was stolen. So I apply my litmus test. If you can't say the 2020 election was stolen, and if you won't go to Congress and fight for election reform, then I'm not voting for you. So I won't be voting for Joe Strada. As tempting as it is, to have a big business guy, somebody who has built a company, to represent us in Congress, that's tempting for me. But when you get into it, he is the next deep state politician in my view. So I won't be voting for Joe Strada.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move along because we are again quickly getting out of time,
yeah.
right? So that leaves us with Tim Wilkins, who actually lives in our district and has made himself very much available and very much aware of the fact that yes, the 2020 election did have some illegalities or some issues there.
I need you to say it, okay? Or else I'm going to be mad at you.
So,
yeah, Tim Wilkins, I told Tim Wilkins when I met him, Tim Wilkins is a media guy, and he's really super sharp, okay? Very articulate, great public speaker, right? Handsome guy, Marine, beautiful wife, beautiful family, all that. He's got all the accoutrements of a great public personality. And I told him, I said, Tim, I really like you. It's impossible not to like you. Just like Kerry Baker. Kerry Baker's very likable guy. And I told him, I said, I don't know you. I've known Kerry Baker for 15 years, but I can't get to know you wholly in a week or 2 hours sitting down with you. But I've been in touch with Tim Wilkins over the course of the campaign, and I like the guy. I think he's a good guy. And I think that he has, as much as we can tell in a short relationship, I believe that he has the best interest of the constituents of CD11 at heart. And I think we would do well to send him to Congress. So I'm going to be voting for Tim Wilkins.
Well, you can't, unfortunately, but
No, I can't. That's right. I'm in six.
but I can.
I would like to see people in CD 11 vote for Tim
There
Wilkins.
you go. There you go. Well, again, we're running really. It's amazing how quickly we run out of time. We probably will go a little long this morning, but let's quickly hit your district, CD 6.
Man, that's a tough one, Chuck.
Yeah, yeah.
CD 6 is a real nightmare, right? I mean, it's just so hard to choose a candidate in this race, right? So, you want to get us started with who's teed up
Unfortunately,
first?
I don't have all those in front
Okay,
of
yeah,
me.
it's Bilzerian.
I
Okay,
lost.
I have it. I
I
have
lost
it.
sight of the fact
Here
that
it
I
is.
wouldn't have
Yeah,
had your
exactly.
stuff here.
So we have this guy Dan Bilzerian, right? He's a social media star, whatever. Let's see where we at here. Okay, wow. So we're not even there. Chris Gleason, this guy, yeah, Bilzerian. Okay, so this starts off with Aaron Baker. Okay. You know, I've known Aaron Baker for the entire, he started early. He ran against Randy Fine in the special election last time. And I didn't know who Aaron Baker was from Adam. Okay. But of course, I heard all the slimy things about Randy Fine. Okay. And Aaron Baker's done a really good job getting out to all the public events, and he's been doing it for well over a year and a half. I mean, this guy's been running for Congress for more than 2 years, if you count the previous election cycle, right? But Aaron Baker is not. He comes to these conservative meetings and makes very broad statements, but the fact of the matter is that Aaron Baker is not aligned with my value proposition. Okay, he's got lifestyle issues that are inconsistent that I'm not a fan of. I don't want to get too deep into it. I just want to spare him my criticism. But for example, for me, and you know, this applies to Bilzerian as well. You know, these people, I won't say that Aaron Baker is an anti-Semite, but Dan Bilzerian is, right? I mean, they hate Israel. They think that, which is, look, I'm open-minded. I understand that you know, politicians and spies in government agencies do really bad things. And I'm not opposed. I'm not closed to the idea that the nation of Israel could possibly overreach and interfere in American elections. I get it. America interferes in elections all over the world all the time. So I have issues with Aaron Baker. So that's that. I'm not going to vote for Aaron Baker. I'm in CD6. I'm not voting for Aaron Baker. So then you get Bilzerian. And again, I don't know too much about Bilzerian, but he's a social media star, right? He's an influencer. And that's by virtue. That's what he's running on, basically. And then he pounds Israel, right? And I get that. And I'm open to debating policy issues as it relates to Israel. And I'm open-minded to the fact that Israel probably engages in bad things to influence the United States government, but what country doesn't? Okay? Again, as President Trump has told us many times, he's the president of the United States and he works for the best interests of the American people. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu is the prime minister of the state of Israel, and he does what's in the best interest of Israelis who, oh, by the way, are getting missiles shot into their houses on a regular basis. What do you want the Jewish people to do? Just suck it up? Is that what you're asking? So no, I'm an Israel supporter, but I am America first, okay? But I want to stand with my brothers. And to Kerry Baker's credit, when we interviewed him, he said that Christians are grafted to the Jewish people. And I respect that. Kerry Baker's a good guy in a lot of ways. Not to revert back to the other race. And I've already explained to you why I'll be voting for, why I would recommend you vote for Wilkins. But so you have Bilzerian. Then you, of course, then you have Randy Fine, right? And as offensive as Randy Fine can be, I'll be honest with you, in most cases, I agree with Randy Fine in principle, right? So it's really hard for me not to vote for Randy Fine. And then you have this gentleman, his name is Gambaro. And some of the folks here in Mount Dora have done some fundraisers for him and stuff like that. He's a military guy and all that. He has, he's raised about $350,000. He's spent it all. So he has like $1,500 in his campaign account going into election day. So he's certainly not going to get elected. Okay. But today, and I'll just say to you out loud, Chuck, in this election cycle, electability has nothing to do with it for me. The people who are obviously electable are not acceptable to me in this election cycle. I find it, I was almost tempted not to vote, but of course I would never ding my voting record by not voting. Right. I voted in every election for the last 20 years or more. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ding my voting record, but I find it very difficult to vote for the people that are most likely to win. So I'm just voting my conscience today. Right. So then you get Gambaro, and I'm not he's a nice guy and everything. He's a military guy and all that. And I personally have a personal belief, Chuck, that military service does not qualify you to be a congressman. So that's that. And so I guess, I don't know, I haven't made a hard decision in this particular election, but I'm leaning toward voting for Randy Fine, as offensive as he is to a lot of people that are watching this broadcast right now. Chuck.
There you go.
Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, comments. Make sure you comment, okay?
Yeah.
We're very interested in what you think. And of course, the comments help us. And we'll respond to your comments, by the way.
Okay,
We'll
so
respond to your comments.
so
Go
anyway,
ahead, Chuck.
Mike, we are out of time, and
No
we've
way.
barely gotten through half of this.
Is there anything on here in the next couple of minutes you want to cover before we sign off?
Well, the question is, do we want to continue this on Thursday? Because
Yeah, we
obviously we haven't touched the governor's race, and there's probably a lot to talk about there, and then the other half of the ballot. So possibly, in my estimation, Mike, why don't you just kind of bring us
Okay.
to a close, and we'll
I'm
talk
looking forward
more.
to it, Chuck.
We'll
I'm
talk
looking
more
forward to
about
my
this
little
Thursday.
quick closing comment right
There
now.
you go. Well,
Because I got to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it is for me in politics since day one. Okay, since I was a kid. I needed guidance when I was in high school. I read the Bible for guidance. I think that's what we should all do. Read the Bible. And I've told Kerry Baker on many occasions that the Jews live their faith. And every elected official in the United States of America, particularly Jews and Christians, should live our faith. And we should hold ourselves accountable to the natural law given to us by the creator of the universe, God. And the letter of the law is a formality. It is a human formality that, of course, we have to adhere to the letter of the law, but we don't get to leverage every mechanism of power at our disposal against our fellow citizens because it's not illegal. That is ridiculous. I hope no one raises their children that way, Chuck.
Well, thank you, Mike Levine, and thank you all for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook and X at Restore Our Rep 76. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic -ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you, God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.